I heard that a military helicopter literally crashed into a passenger plane. Yeah, the incompetence of up there is trickling down. And we don't have months, we don't have years, we don't have until election. We have days to weeks until we cannot go back. You see, I'm confident that the Biden Democrats pre-authorized some sort of plan. I don't know what that is or how it looks like. However, I do know that that timeline doesn't have the urgency that we have in defending this Constitution, because once he gets everything, not even the best wishes of Democrats will be able to save us. People are excited that certain executive orders and certain actions have been blocked by courts, but what happens when that gets to the Supreme Court? Will that save us? Unpredictable. It didn't with Roe versus Wade, it didn't with the TikTok ban. See, the people who have a blind trust and political willingness are the same people who expected for former President Joe Biden to instruct the archivist to publish the Equal Rights Amendment. But did she? No. You see, people say, oh, they have a plan, they have to move in silence. They've been moving in silence for decades. They've had a bunch of nothing when it comes to strategy. They're passive. They have no backbone as a collective. You see, all you hear is talks about midterms. We focus on midterms. No, Donald Trump is focusing on the now. Every single day, he guts things that we cannot restore. It's going to take decades of litigation to restore. Why? Because they want to show face. They want to show decorum, that the United States is above any sort of interference, but it isn't, because it's coming at the sacrifice of a lot of us, and they want to tell us, hey, just wait it out 4 years. No, there's some of us who are being targeted from day one. They want to send immigrants to Guantanamo Bay. How serious is this? It's extremely serious, and it's only gonna get worse by the day. People are like, can NATO save us? No, NATO cannot save us unless they had some pre-authorization from the Biden government, or there's some sort of military decision that allows for them to do so. But that won't be invoked unless they believe there is a constitutional crisis. It doesn't look like we have a constitutional crisis because we're all accepting it. We're all saying 4 years. We're all saying the midterms. We're all saying to be patient, and being silent, no one's listening to us because they don't see it as serious, because we're not showing them that it's serious. And it's one thing that we cannot take it to the streets, okay? Valid, but what's that alternative? What's that alternative? One, legitimizing our cries and our demands by having our Democrat politicians actually vocalize that we are in a constitutional crisis, because that provides us with lawful remedies that we didn't have before. It also positions the seriousness of this and may invoke action from the supreme military official, or even NATO themselves, or the global community, because they don't know, because they can't hear us and we can't hear them. So how are we going to do this? Waiting around isn't doing anything, and we're being told that we need to wait until midterms and focus on midterms. No, I'm gonna get sent to Guantanamo Bay maybe. And I'm not even an immigrant, but I'm sure they want people like me to go to Guantanamo Bay. They're really, really scared because my half beard is a perfect seat for their women. See, I would be nervous too if I was a competition, because I'm cheaper than Plan B. So it's funny because we talk about how there's a higher purpose, there's a higher game plan. Well, we have to escalate that game plan. That has to be the plan for we the people. We escalate those game plan. How? We overwhelm those political channels, whether that's digital or in public. We overwhelm them. We force them, the Democrats, to say it out loud that we are in a constitutional crisis. I know that AOC said it. I'm being told that Schumer said it. There's another one who said it, but that's 3 in total. Another avenue is pressuring the states to disconnect from the federal government obedience under Section 3 of Article 6. Politicians saying that we are in a constitutional crisis allows for state officials to question whether we have an obedience to the federal government, because it is virtually dissolved. In our reality, we're capable of leveraging our blue economies to force a vote in Congress. Either you vote on the legitimacy of this illegitimate president who committed election interference in 2021 for the 2020 election, or you have to ask us to rejoin this new union, this new social contract, because this was not the one we signed from 1789, because he subverted it. Do you know why he's capable of doing all of that he does? Because in allowing for him to subvert and violate Article 6 supremacy clause on January 6th, we basically substituted the Constitution for Donald Trump. That's what our Democrats allowed for in not objecting to him. That's what our Democrats allowed for in giving him the legitimacy. The most dangerous thing you can give a tyrant is the legitimacy of having them in office. See, had our federal Congress been scholars of American constitutionalism, they would know Federalist 9 by Alexander Hamilton, the Union as a safeguard against domestic faction and insurrection, where it says that if a single member should attempt to usurp the supreme authority, in our reality, it is Article 6 Supremacy Clause, because remember, Donald Trump had what? The Insurrection Act, and he didn't act on it. Why? Because it wasn't black and Latinos, it was white supremacists who were his own cult. He could not be supposed to have an equal authority and credit in all the states. Were he to subdue a part, that which still remained free might oppose him with forces independent of those which he had usurped and overpower him before he could be settled in his usurpation. So in his violation, we are supposed to stop him from even doing it. Did the Democrats do that? No. Maybe there's a greater reason for this, but they failed. And as a reality, we gave him the legitimacy. This is why saying that he is illegitimate is misinformation for TikTok. This is why I've had videos removed. Because now the truth and memory is reshaped to that of the legitimacy that we gave him in allowing for him to go in, even though the Jack Smith report says that he literally committed and comforted an insurrection, therefore should not have even been an option. Why was he an option? Because of a judicial and legislative coup. As a result, we are in a constitutional crisis. Really, I think when it comes to the Democratic Party, it's the equivalent of you driving and being lost but refusing to admit that you're lost because you don't want people to think that you're inept. And I think that's what we're experiencing, where they don't actually know how to fix this, but they don't want to vocalize that they don't actually know how to fix this. So what? They want us to ride it out for 4 years. It's not going to be 4 years only, but they want to say that so that we don't clue in that they don't actually have a resolve. You see, Alexander Hamilton himself said, the country may be destroyed on one side and not on the other. The country may be dissolved and the states preserve their sovereignty. So why is it that my governor, Gavin Newsom, is just allowing for illegitimate federal agents of ICE to come into our state and just start mass deporting Californians? Not only mass deporting, but discriminating against over 40% of the California population, which is the majority of the population. See, there's Californians who question whether Governor Newsom did some sort of Obama quota that allowed for ICE to get much more people, went deep into Los Angeles as well. Why? And the thing is that we need to figure out what leverage do we have. And as Democrats, the only leverage we have is the blue economies. So it's either gonna be that we trigger some sort of global response or military response through a legitimacy vocalization from our representatives in Congress. 2, convince our states and blue states to break from the federal government per Section 3 of Article 6 that positions that a state's government's duty is to the Constitution, not to the government. And in that reality, our only duty becomes to our state constitution, not to the federal government. In that reality, the feds don't have jurisdiction entering into our state. In that reality, we force a vote of either restoring the Constitution and keeping the Union or asking states to rejoin. Or the last one is the one that I don't want to see come to fruition, which is what occurred in order to restore the Union during the Confederacy. Because the Confederacy existed until it didn't. It doesn't exist because of the restoration of the Constitution. In this reality, it's not going to be nice. And it's possible that the only way it gets restored is if we split. So it's either going to be a possible split through peace and coordination, or it's going to be a split through conflict. But the goal should be forcing them to maintain the Union through removing what's supposed to be illegitimate. So these are some options, particularly forcing our Congress members to vocalize that this is a constitutional crisis, because unless we have that, then it's not real. If a tree falls and no one hears it, then it didn't fall. So no one actually believes that we're in a constitutional crisis because we're all just not acting like we're in a constitutional crisis, right? There's valid fears, but at the same time, if you're not putting in SOS, if you're not shouting, then the plane won't hear you when you're lost. It's not up to NATO, it's not up to the military, it's up to us to put up those SOSs, because no one's going to listen, no one's going to save us. 1994, Rwanda waited and 800,000 people were gone.